Hey, what up ladies and gents, it's your favorite Asian robot right here, and one day I'll be your favorite Diablo 4 content creator. Now, I'm sure you guys have already heard from all the big streamers and whatnot that many problems, this, that, the other, but I'm here to give you a true breakdown of the patch notes. Now, I'm going to state clearly that I'm only going to cover the general patch notes first, alright, because the class patch notes are a whole nother worm to unpack, and I'll probably do that video tomorrow. Alright, what I'm going to do is go through this and show you what are the major points that you guys need to understand, and I'll explain the new standards that builds will be tagged to for my channel. Now, if other creators do not wish to obey these standards, that is up to them, you know, we all make our own choices, but I'm going to tell you that based on my testing, everything has currently, to my knowledge, been brought in line, and I'll explain that later on. Alright, first section. If you scroll down, you're going to see the new unique items and legendary aspects. You can read this for yourself if you want. The link to this is in the description of the video if you'd like to see that. Okay. The bug fixes section, all right? There's a lot here that you can unpack if you want to. Again, I'm not going to go through that. I'm going to come straight down to the barbarian section for the gameplay bug fixes and explain things starting there. The reason is because this is where actual things that you need to know really starts in the patch notes. So first, starting with the barbarian, the biggest thing that you guys are going to need to understand is that the aspect of ancestral force, previously it basically gave you excessive damage. All right, if you read here, fixed an issue where the outer edge of the quakes granted to the hammer of the ancients via the aspect of ancestral echoes. This is incorrect. It's actually the aspect of ancestral force. They've made a typo here because ancestral echoes is the one which is a lucky hit with Call of the Ancients, alright? Whereas Ancestral Force is the one where Hammer of Ancients quakes outward. You can actually see that. I just put a reference there to Fextra Life, the wiki. So you can just go there and have a look, and I'll tell you. But anyway, basically what people were doing was that they were stacking Berserk Ripping, Skullbreaker, and Anemia aspects to deal excessive amounts of damage. You know, having all of them together just basically made you do insane amounts of damage to obliterate your opponents. Since my builds didn't make use of these, it doesn't really matter. We just had one, which is Berserk Ripping. In fact, right now it may not be the greatest, but it doesn't matter. We'll see how to work with that in Season 1 when it actually drops. But that said, the Barbarian was tested during my morning stream, and we found no issues if you stick to the recommended leveling procedure. Alright, I'll go through this later on and explain things in more detail, but basically, if you're sticking to the recommended levels in accordance with the offset during the leveling process, you will have no trouble doing so with generally decent gear, as well as a proper build. Again, the stuff that I use on stream and on my channel will be shared with you all in Season 1, as I've been doing the entire preseason, and all of them are still functioning absolutely perfectly as advertised, basically. Okay, so that's it for the Barbarian. Alright, that's the most major change. For the Druid, the major change is that the Stormclaws aspect, which allowed Shred to do extreme amounts of damage, has now been fixed. Okay, I don't know if this has been truly fixed in game. I do not play a Storm Druid, but if any other Storm Druids can confirm this for me, let me know. Okay, there are several other bug fixes for the Druid, some of which are actually useful for like the Pulverized Werebear. It will no longer consume 2 overpower buffs simultaneously, which is really good. And there's a couple of other things here which could be useful depending on whether or not you used it. But yeah, overall, this has been useful. So you can no longer exploit that damage, but it doesn't affect builds that did not take advantage of the Stormclaws aspect. So the more normal Storm Wolf builds should be fine. I think the Tornado Wolf builds should be fine as well. Alright, so that should be alright. Now, in terms of the Necromancer's bug fixes, the major one is that if you have Deathless Visage, as I like to call it, and you cast your Bone Spear through the Chilling Wind, I've demonstrated this many times on stream, it'll cause multiple detonations of the echoes, exactly where the wind wall, the Chilling Wind wall is, right? This no longer happens. So, in a sense, you can't really use that anymore, but Deathless Visage is still good. It will work as intended now, but it's no longer like, you absolutely must get this. That said, what I am going to tell you, and this is just me being very straight and honest with you, Deathless Visage is still one of the best in slot helmets. So if you happen to get one, good. If you don't happen to get one, well, okay, it's fine. You know, you're not going to suffer too much. All right. So that's about it. Now, that covers the bug fixes for the Necromancer. For the Rogue, there's just a variety of bug fixes. None of them, like, super major, in my opinion. None of them have affected the Rogue builds that I've worked with thus far. For the Sorcerer, there are major fixes, which you guys need to be aware of. But 2 of them stand out, okay, amongst the others. The first is that the Ice Shards technically received an improvement because there was an issue previously where casting Deep Freeze would prevent the Ice Shard enchantment from triggering, and most of the Ice Shard builds also took advantage of Deep Freeze for the cooldown resets, especially for the longer, bigger fights. So this is pretty helpful. However, there has been a big nerf. Well, I guess it was a bug in the first place, but the aspect of control was applying the damage bonus 3 times for staggered bosses. So bossing is going to be a little bit more difficult on the sorcerers. However, if built correctly, you should still be able to boss with relatively minimal fuss. All right, but again, I emphasize built correctly. Again, season 1, y'all are going to see these changes come in. We'll be starting out with the Lightning Sorcerer as we always do while leveling, and then of course later on we'll switch to the Ice Shard Sorcerer, which I didn't do in the preseason, but you guys will see me do in season 1. All right, so look forward to that because that is basically how it's supposed to go. Yeah, okay, good. Now, next is the general fixes. All right, for the general fixes, there's 2 major ones. Okay, the first is that in Nightmare Dungeons, okay, monsters that had a cold, bleeding, burning, or corruption affix, if they had the cold enchanted affix, would also freeze players in 1 hit. This was really problematic and necessitated a very solid playstyle around the unstoppable buff for your character, because if you were not unstoppable or you did not have a long unstoppable, cold affix dungeons would literally have to be scrapped because you would not be able to use that sigil and play it properly. So only druids and barbarians could take advantage of that. To an extent, necromancers could do the same, but you had to avoid getting hit. And then you just pull everybody in and bone spear them. This has been changed, so please be aware of that. The change is good, obviously, because now you're not going to instantly freeze. All right, but they've also made a secondary change where cold enchanted monsters froze players more often than intended in higher world tiers. This has been fixed, so we should not be freezing as often, therefore necessitating less of a focus on unstoppable. So far in my playthroughs, in keeping with the new level offsets, I have been fine. So I have not had that many issues. Yeah, so I can certainly say that this, to me, is a relatively positive change. I'll say that this is a good one, okay? But, of course, for you guys, you may have to decide for yourself whether or not it's good, bad, or whatever else. All right, I'll leave that up to you. Now, next important change is the Helltide. The Helltide basically has a major bug right now, whereby, you know, whatever changes they talked about here, I don't know what they did, but they bugged it. It's not in this patch notes, but basically I'm just going to tell you, I've done a video on it as well. The Helltide has a major bug where aberrant cinders barely drop from monsters. Even opening up the random stuff around the world, which they said has a small chance of, you know, dropping cinders, doesn't really do that. The stuff that used to drop like 4 or 5 cinders before, like the Screaming Hellveins, the Fiend Roses, all that, will still give you the 4 or 5 cinders. Events will still give you cinders at the end, but the nerf to the monster drop rated cinders means that getting your 250 for a mystery chest is going to take you like the entire Helltide right now. I don't know if it's intended. I hope not, because I think that is a very bad idea. Okay, and that's just me being absolutely honest. I think it's a horrible idea, so they need to walk that change back. Helltide monsters, which you'll find out later on, are also 3 levels higher, rather than up from 2 levels higher, which it was previously. But this does not increase your challenge anyway, because by the time you're World Tier 4, your offset is 10 levels, so you should be fighting to up to 10 levels above you with no problem, assuming that your build is properly done. Yeah? Okay, that's about it for the Helltides. I don't recommend doing them right now unless you really want to, but you can decide this for yourself. Right now, Nightmare Dungeons are probably a better choice. Okay, in terms of the aspects, right, Aspect power used to increase while upgrading an item. Sometimes this will no longer occur. Okay, it was a bug. The level requirement for sacred items is now capped at level 60. The ancestral items are now capped at level 80. Okay, this is all listed here. The other thing that you need to be aware of when it comes to items and aspects is... Oh, nothing else here, sorry. Okay, great. I fully covered that. Next, in terms of monsters. Okay, monsters used to drop items of a higher power than was intended, especially when they came from rare or elite monsters, so this will no longer happen, okay? Overall, you will see a general decrease in your loot quality, but the other thing is that due to the new level offsets, again, your combat should be in line with where you need to be. All right, so I will demonstrate this in Season 1 easily, but yeah, basically your combat is going to be where it needs to be. Okay, other than that, suppressor clones for monsters that have the suppressor affix. This was a major pain for players like me who play Bone Spear Necro, but now that will no longer be a problem. All right, because the suppressor clones no longer have suppressor. All right, so that is a huge fix for us. All right, these are the major fixes for monsters. Now, in terms of gameplay updates, what you need to understand here, all right, we're going to skip quests and events because none of this is important. User interface, none of this is important. Miscellaneous, none of this is important. You can read it if you want, but again, none of this is important. The gameplay updates that you need to be aware of is that Altars of Lilith are account-wide. Just log in on a character where you've done all the altars, and when you next log into a character where you haven't done them, it should say they've all been done. So log into your most done character, and it will merge the data, all right? The map follows the same rules. Just go into your most done character. So for me, that was my first ever Necro. I've gone in, and now all characters already show that the map is maxed out, and that the altars are all done, yeah? And you'll get the renown for these, so you can test that already. Monsters will be moving less in combat, which is good, so melee characters don't have to chase them down. This may make other builds more viable for melee characters, yeah? And renown is much easier to obtain because side quest renown reward values have been increased from 20 to 30, and dungeon renown reward values have increased from 30 to 40. So during the new season, this is going to be really good because you're going to be able to finish your account-wide renown in a snap. All right, I'll be doing it live. Just catch the streams when the season starts and you're all good to go. All right? Okay, now, okay, this is the crucial part. This is where you guys really need to pay attention. World tiers have been altered slightly. Now, most of these changes are not important, but the leveling, scaling changes, and the offsets for experience, these are very important, so pay attention. World tier 2 now drops 5% more bonus gold, which nobody really cares about, but monsters will now drop 15% more items, giving you a reason to be in World tier 2. All right? But again, it's up to you. World Tier 1 will probably still offer faster leveling, but I prefer World Tier 2. And I've explained this several times. It's because it gives me a chance to test my build under a hard mode situation. Therefore, I know that if I go to World Tier 3 or 4, I can easily handle it in a snap. Yeah? Okay. So that's why World Tier 2 is still my preferred stomping grounds, even if I end up an hour or two slower than a World Tier 1 leveler. Yeah? Okay, level scaling inside dungeons and most overworld territories has been adjusted. Monsters will now begin to trail behind the player after a certain point. But basically, what this just means is that for World Tier 3 and 4, monsters will be behind your level. Okay? And they have a certain maximum and minimum, but nobody cares about this. All you need to know is that because of this change, farming normal dungeons is less useful than nightmare dungeons. Okay? So, yeah. Now, experience. Okay, this is where it's going to get interesting. Basically, they've tried to kill the power leveling industry, which they should have done in the first place because power leveling is dumb. But, you know, I am, as you guys know, a strong unsupporter of boosting. I do not support power leveling. I do not support any of these things because I feel that you're not a true gamer if you take advantage of these or if you pay to win. All right? Maybe my stance is harsh, but, you know, that's just me. I do not like this, so these changes for me are a good thing. Right. How it used to work before. You know that I've already had to undo the damage of people believing that +3 levels higher was the maximum you should go, but no. In the past, you could actually gain, for example, let's say you're level 1 and your friend fought a level 100 enemy. You would gain a level 100 monster's XP multiplied by the 25% bonus, which they have clearly stated in this thing. So this confirms everything I told you before. The base monster XP is multiplied by the bonus. You don't just fight 3 levels above you unless you're stupid, all right? But I guess some people were, because they chose not to study proper information. They just chose to be dumb. So, yeah, you know, I spend a lot of time undoing this damage. Now you guys know I was right all along. However, they have changed the system so that now there is something called an offset. What is the offset? The offset means that no matter what level you are fighting, right, you will only gain XP up to the offset level. The easiest example is, the example is actually just written here, but I'll go through it with you. Previously, remember how I mentioned that if your friend fought a level 100 monster while you're level 1, okay, you would get a level 100 monster's XP and plus the 25% bonus, right? Okay. Now, no longer happens. Now, there's an offset. So, for example, in World Tier 4, the offset is plus 10. So, the maximum XP that you can get is from a monster 10 levels higher. So, even if you were to fight 20 levels above your level, you would only get the XP of a monster 10 levels above you. That's it. That is what an offset means, okay? So, what does this mean for builds? I told you I would cover this. This is the most crucial thing you guys need to understand. The game was never intended for you to fight 20, 30, 40 levels above you without any trouble. At least not without God-rolled gear and a full party, which is what you were supposed to do. The endgame Nightmare Dungeons, therefore, are now much harder because of all the nerfs, changes, class stuff. This one, like I said, I'll go through in a separate video because there's a lot to unpack. Okay, there's a lot to unpack all in this balance changes right here. Okay, this one I'll go through in a separate detail, but for now, what you need to understand is that builds, especially robot builds coming in Season 1, are all going to be tagged toward this level offset. Simple terms. World Tier 3, by the time, okay, early and mid-game builds, no change. Early and mid-game builds are probably going to be the same because they will be tagged to monsters that are your level. End of story, okay? For World Tier 3, which is late game builds, which will now cover up to level 70 instead. This is to ensure that, I should probably state. So early and mid game builds will go cover level 1 to 50. This will happen in Season 1. Change from my previous structure of doing it 20, 40 because that made no sense. I was new to the game and I didn't understand how to properly structure this. So now we're structuring it more accurately. And basically what I'm going to do is that I'm going to structure it such that the World Tier 3 late game builds will cover up to level 70, and they're going to be designed for taking on monsters of a maximum of 6 levels above you. A build that can safely take on monsters 6 levels above you, including the Butcher, will be considered a proper build. The adjustment for World Tier 4 will then be monsters 10 levels above you, and that will be considered a proper build, which will affect the endgame builds, which will cover up to level 90 or 100, depending on what we need to do. Okay, thorough testing will probably complete around level 80/85, and I will probably post the endgame builds about there. Okay, yeah, but that's basically about it. All right. This, I hope, will help you guys understand exactly what we're going to do, why we're going to do what we do, and how these build structures are going to change coming into Season 1. That said, I've already tested on stream, and the Necromancer, the Bone Spear Necromancer, can still do 10, 12, 13 levels above with no issue, which means it has no trouble meeting the offset. This is after all the balancing updates and changes, which I'll go through in tomorrow's video. Furthermore, it has literally no trouble meeting the actual best leveling procedure, which I'm going to state clearly, based on my estimate, it would be best in terms of bonus XP and all that, and as well as difficulty clearing dungeons. Based on my tests, about 7 levels above you in World Tier 4 is the recommended for leveling. You can go plus minus 1, so 6 levels above you, 8 levels above you is fine. But 7 levels is the recommended average, and for World Tier 3, 5 levels above you is the recommended average. This is very close to the offset already anyway, so plus minus 1 should be totally fine. You are literally only, the minimum would be 1 level more than the Helltides, and the average would be 2 levels more than the Helltides, which you should be clearing with ease. With ease, okay? So you should have no trouble with that. I'm just going to state that openly, and all of my builds can easily accomplish this by the time you hit World Tier 3. So that's not going to be a problem. All right? This brings us to the end of the first part of this patch notes discussion. Tomorrow, I will unpack all the balancing updates thoroughly and in more detail, but I hope that this is helpful to you. I wanted to give a true explanation of this update to give you guys a proper perspective so that it's not just me whining, oh my god, everything got nerfed. No, you got to take it in context. You got to understand it in context. I'm not here to bring you doom and gloom. I'm here to bring you an actual picture of the game. And as far as my testing has gone, as far as the robot builds have gone, Robot Nation is still banging. We're not having any problems. So if you're having problems, come to Robot Nation. We'll solve them for you. All right? Thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. If you do so, I'll be very grateful to you. All right? Thank you for giving a smaller creator a chance. I promise to always bring you the accurate information. Now, I'm going to give my thanks to the top supporters on my channel. So thank you guys very much to the following people who have genuinely supported me. All right. First of all, we're going to thank July's big week supporters. Our biggest tipper, Zane Hoagland. Our July's top tipper list, Bravo7910 and Jason Leaving. All right. Top super chatter goes to Zane Hoagland again. Top membership gifters, Sabingu and Mike Cawthorn. Top super chatters, Mike Cawthorn, River Archer, Kenzo, and Ray's Reality. Thank you guys so much for all the support. And now for our top channel members as well, who have been relentlessly supporting me and keeping my ass out of the poorhouse. All right. Here is my thank you to the following individuals. Come on, bring up the members list. YouTube, don't be nerdy. Don't be nerdy. YouTube sometimes takes a while, but it's okay. Giving my thanks to Death Dawning 982 at Plus Ultra. We've got Jerry Fast, OG, Rogue Assassin, Zach, and G at Prestige. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to all of our honored robots as well. We have Marcel, Kaishiwa, Bob John, Maxim Lotz, Corey Ryu, Devin Lashin, Mookie Mocha, Rena, Chase Taylor, Nathan Strong, Sabingu, Lady Neo, Joey Danze, Dara Verse, Che D12, I'm Peeps, Sayed Assad, Coda CMF, Kami SMH, Conrad C, Nate the Great, and Benjamin Savage. Thank you guys. Thank you to all of our cool and weird bots as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was informative. I hope it helped explain the situation to you guys, because this is the current situation. Remember, it's not doom and gloom. It's not. You just got to understand it properly, all right? There are some doom and gloom, though, but not all of it, okay? I'll catch you tomorrow for the unpacking of the updates and stuff. Thank you very much. See you on the next one. Oh, and don't forget to like, please. Yeah? Thanks.